The top business stories live from the Sky News City studio. New plans to crack down on companies that fire and rehire workers on less favourable terms. Shares of Currys surged by as much as 38% after a Chinese e-commerce giant is confirmed as the latest would-be buyer. Plus, Wizz Air grows its fleet to 200, claiming its new aircraft makes it the youngest fleet in Europe. Good morning, this is Business Live with me, Ian King. The government has launched what it says is a crackdown on the practice of fire and rehire, where a company sacks an employee and offers them a new contract on new, often less favourable terms. Well, ministers promised to take action against unscrupulous employers following the controversial sacking of nearly 800 P&O ferry staff without consultation nearly 2 years ago. I've been speaking to the Business Minister, Kevin Hollinrake.
What we've announced is we're cracking down on rogue employers who misuse practices like fire and rehire to avoid paying their employees what they deserve and trying to restructure their companies in inappropriate ways. So what we're saying is we've got a statutory code which we're saying employers must follow. We're also making it very, very clear within that code this must be a last resort. And employers must look at all different ways they could restructure their workforce to try and get through what may be difficult times. If they don't follow that statutory code of practice, they could get a significant uplift to redundancy payments that are payable to their staff at an employment tribunal. So it's really, I say, cracking down on those rogue employers to make sure they do the right thing by their staff.
But in theory, fire and rehire is still open to employers in the direst of circumstances.
Well, I think it's exactly the right way to put it. It is a last resort. We see it used very rarely, but there are occasions, and these occasions have gone to court in the past, where there was no alternative. So better than hundreds of people potentially being made redundant or losing their jobs is to look at ways to restructure a workforce if a company hits very difficult economic times. We think it's the right thing to do. We see these provisions used very, very rarely. But you'd rather save a company and save those jobs than necessarily just hang on to an ideology that means you can't do it at all.
Under the new arrangements, would P&O ferries, for example, have been able to get away with what they did a couple of years ago?
Well, P&O ferries was a different situation. That was a fire situation. It wasn't a fire and rehire situation. So we've got an investigation going on into P&O ferries to see if they broke civil, requirements under civil law. So Insolvency Service are looking at that. So this is a different situation than the P&O ferries one, which was a disgraceful way to run their business. Since that we have legislated to say that anybody working in British waters, territorial waters, must earn the national living wage to reduce the benefit somebody like P&O might get from taking those kind of actions. Also, of course, workers can take their cases to employment tribunals and make sure they get significant redress for that kind of action.
You mentioned just now some of the consequences for companies that engage in fire and rehire without good cause. Will there be consequences for the directors personally?
That's not part of the regulations that we're putting in place today. That's not what we're saying, but clearly it's very important that directors do abide by the law, otherwise they can find themselves in an employment tribunal. I speak as a former employer myself, and that's not where any employer wants to be. So that's the employment tribunals do an excellent job in making sure that employers generally do the right thing, and that's what we see from most employers. Most employers are good employers, follow employment law, and make sure they treat their staff properly, because we know that's good business.
Now, while we have you, Kevin, obviously you're Postal Services Minister as well. What have you made of these claims from Henry Staunton, the former Post Office chairman, that he was told to stall on compensation payments to postmasters? Yeah,
I was very surprised by his comments. I mean, I wasn't on the call between the Secretary of State and the chair when when the agreement was reached to part company. With him, but it certainly isn't. I don't recognise what he said in terms of what happened in terms of trying to slow down compensation or other things like that. That's not a situation I recognise. ever since I've been, and for years before, but ever since I've been Postal Affairs Minister, we've been very focused on getting that compensation out the door as quickly as possible. And if you look at what the Post Office is doing, it's got offers to 100% of the people who applied in the Horizon Shortfall scheme. So it's not as if those payments were delayed. There's two other schemes we're working on right now, but we've done much to try and accelerate those payments over the last 12 of the time that Henry Staunton was in office. So I just don't recognise what he's saying, and I'm a bit confused of why he's saying it.
Well, you've used a little more diplomatic language than the Secretary of State, who said that his interview was full of lies. I mean, that doesn't seem a fair way to talk about a former government employee.
Well, I wasn't on the call, as I say, but I think the Secretary of State has been very clear that the version of events that she read in the paper was nothing like the version she was that she had from the notes that were taken on that call, and officials were on that call as well.
Now, you're promising legislation to quash these unfair convictions. When would you anticipate that being completed?
Well, very soon. I hope to have an announcement within days in terms of what exactly we're going to do and how we're going to do it. It's not straightforward. This is unprecedented legislation overturning the conclusions and the judgments of courts. Not something we'll do lightly. We're looking at best ways to do it, the most effective way to do it, the most efficient ways of doing it. We're determined to get this done within weeks. And of course, once we've done that, we will open the door to compensation for hundreds of people, which is long overdue and something we're keen to do very, very quickly. But I say we should have some news on exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it very, very shortly.
Some other business news stories for you now. And shares of Currys have surged by as much as 38% this morning after JD.com, the Chinese e-commerce giant, said it was in the very preliminary stages of evaluating an offer for the UK's biggest electrical goods retailer. Well, the news came after Sky's Mark Kleinman reported on Saturday that the US private equity giant Elliott Advisors had made an offer for Currys, valuing the business at £700 million. Currys confirmed this morning that it had rejected the offer as it significantly undervalued the company and its future prospects. Elliott is now said to be considering raising its terms. OpenAI, the owner of ChatGPT, has reportedly been valued at $80 billion in a financial transaction. The New York Times says that some employees of OpenAI have been selling shares in the business to a group of investors led by the venture capital firm Thrive Capital. A similar deal early last year valued the business at $29 billion. And the German maker of the Panther tank is to open a new plant in Ukraine. Rheinmetall, which is also Europe's largest ammunition maker, said today it had signed a memorandum of understanding with a Ukrainian partner company to set up a joint venture which in future will produce ammunition in Ukraine. It said the Ukrainian Competence Centre for Ammunition would produce a six-digit number of 155mm caliber bullets per year in future, including the corresponding propelling charges. Now, Wizz Air has today taken delivery of its 200th aircraft, a new Airbus A320 Neo based at Luton Airport. The low-cost airline claims that the new aircraft will take the average age of its UK fleet from 2.07 years to 1.97 years, making it the youngest in Europe. Well, the carrier currently has more than 300 A321 Neo aircraft on order, which, it says, is the largest order book in Europe. Well, joining me now is Marion Chauffoy, the UK Managing Director of Wizz Air. Marion, welcome to you. I gather the aircraft has already made its inaugural flight.
The aircraft did fly already to Romania, to one of our Romanian destinations back out. And actually, since its very first flight, it did fly a lot already, every day. And we're delighted to have this addition to our fleet, which indeed decreases the fleet age to below 2 years. But that's not the end of it. By the end of March, we'll be at 1.5 years old average fleet age in Wizz Air UK, which is unprecedented.
Now, what do you like about the A321 Neo as an aircraft, given that it's more expensive than the 737 MAX made by Boeing, which, of course, your rival Ryanair uses a lot?
Well, the A321 Neo has 239 seats, so very high seat density. That's one first element. The other one is the is the decrease in CO2 emissions. It's 20% less than the previous technology, the previous Airbus technology, and also the decrease in noise emission, which is extremely important in the London area, which is very congested. So we see it really as a game changer, and actually with a UK fleet will be 100% A321 Neo fleet in the next 6 weeks. So all our aircraft based at Luton and Gatwick will be A321 Neos.
Now, you've 300 of these aircraft on order. When do you anticipate delivery, given that there have been issues with the Pratt & Whitney engines on some of these aircraft?
The Pratt & Whitney situation doesn't impact the delivery of the aircraft themselves, so the order book will be honoured by the aircraft manufacturers. So the 300 aircraft are expected to be delivered as per the order book between now and the end of the decade.
Now, we're told that this aircraft can fly with 50% sustainable aviation fuel. In practice, will that be the case?
So that will... Today, no, but in the future, yes, when the mandates come into play. But we've made some trials already with blends on this aircraft, and it's been working very well. So we are looking at all the SAF options already for the last years, and we are ensuring that we'll be having enough capacity of SAF to be able to fly with as much blended as possible.
And where will you access that SAF from?
So we have secured this procurement in several countries, in the UK, in other parts of Europe as well, because given our network, it's important that we secure that not only in one country, but in a multitude of countries where we have operations. Fuel needs to travel because we travel, and we need to secure in many different countries.
And Marion, what are you seeing right now in terms of UK bookings? Are things pretty healthy as you look towards the summer?
Things are very healthy. They're healthy for the half terms, for Easter, and looking into the summer, they're extremely healthy as well. We see absolutely no decrease. I think travel makers, holiday makers want to go for cheapest options to travel, and there is absolutely no decrease in demand.
OK, Marion, got to leave it there. Appreciate you joining me today. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, equity markets in China finished to the upside as trading resumed after the Lunar New Year break. The Shanghai Composite finishing up just over 1.5%. There's a pretty mixed picture elsewhere in the Asia-Pacific region overnight. In Europe, stocks are trading largely to the downside this morning. Only the IBEX in Madrid above water just now. Talking points today, that may actually be to do with Santander. One of the main talking points today, that's ahead 1.5% right now in the Spanish capital. That's after it announced a 50% hike in its dividend and plans for a €1.46 billion share buyback. Well, here in London, the FTSE 100 is just about keeping its head above water there, 14 points to the good. It would actually be in negative territory were it not for AstraZeneca, which has added 19 points to the index on its own. That's after US healthcare regulators approved a combination of its Tagrisso drug with chemotherapy to treat an advanced form of lung cancer. AZ shares up nearly 3.5% just now. Other gainers in the FTSE this morning include Segro. The warehouse landlord is ahead another 1.25% after Friday morning's well-received results. To the downside, Centrica is off just under 4% right now. That's after adverse broker comment. Outside the FTSE 100, Currys, of course, the biggest mid-cap gainer, while Bank of Georgia is up by 4% on news it's buying an Armenian lender for $330 million. To the downside, Money Supermarket is off just over 3%. That's after its full-year results received a fairly lukewarm response from investors. On the foreign exchange markets, well, the pound has largely held on to gains it notched up on Friday after the stronger-than-expected retail sales numbers. Sterling ahead by just over 1/10% against the dollar and just below that against the euro. Single currency unchanged right now against the greenback. As for the oil price, well, on Friday, that hit its highest level since the 29th of January. It's given back some of those gains this morning. A barrel of Brent crude will currently cost you $82.97 a barrel. That's down a little over 0.5%. Well, with me as ever on a Monday morning is Russ Mould, the investment director at AJ Bell. Russ, good to see you as ever. Got to start with Currys. I mean, I was amazed that its market cap was only 500 million.
Well, it's got annual sales of £9 billion. Now, that possibly tells you the margins aren't very fat. They're down at 2%. They're looking for 3% plus. But possibly one of the reasons why Elliott or JD.com are looking at it is big sales base. The last remaining, I guess, electricals retailer in the UK with a physical presence, even if most of those stores are leased, there's still something to that. So maybe that's what they're looking at. They think they can get the margins up.
Yeah, what about all the paranoia surrounding China these days? Would JD.com actually be allowed to bid for Currys?
I guess it's going to be an interesting question of the National Investments and Securities Act of 2021. The government has done a bit of a hokey-cokey with that, saying it's going to apply it very vigorously and is now rowing back on it. So I guess we'd find out, but you would think if Elliott have had one go, they might be tempted to have another.
Well, quite so. Where does this leave Currys management? I mean, Alex Baldock, who we've had on this programme a number of times, I mean, most people think he's done a pretty stand-up job as CEO.
I think under very, very testing circumstances, given the competition he's got from online rivals, and indeed he's improved Currys' own online offering and overall service offering quite considerably. It's not impossible. I mean, Elliott don't necessarily always want to run the businesses that they buy. I'm sure they'll keep a more than paternal eye on it if they put their money in, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily all going to be cleared out. No.
Do you think this is inevitable then, that Currys is going to get taken over here?
Well, there are people. There's a hedge fund with about a 15% stake, and a chap called Mike Ashley's got a stake in there as well.
Indeed, yeah.
So I'm sure he'll be watching this potential contest with considerable interest, shall we say?
Yes, fascinating. Big employer, of course, lest
Yes.
we forget. Now, what about Money Supermarket? I mean, the numbers were OK-ish.
They were very strong. I mean, sales up 11%, profits up 4 or 5, the dividend was up a little bit. I think what's probably caused that lukewarm response that you mentioned is the company was actually quite honest, saying we're still not expecting a big increase in the energy switching market this year, for the simple reason the price gap is there and people can abide by it, and the few suppliers left will abide by that. And they're also saying that insurance might cool this year after a red-hot year last year when it was up, 25-30%. We've all seen our own insurance bills go up. Now, I know Mrs. Mould and I have done a lot of shopping around and used some services to help us do that. But, you know, maybe if insurance rates start to cool off a little bit, that may mean that's a little bit less exciting. But overall, any company that can save its customers £2.7 billion is doing something right, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the big story in UK markets this week is going to be the banks. We heard from NatWest on Friday. Barclays step up to the plate tomorrow?
Well, Barclays is perhaps in some ways the most interesting one, given CS Venkat, the chief executive, talks about a strategic review. Analysts have pencilled in an £800 million plus restructuring charge to take for some structural cost improvements across the business. All eyes probably on what it means for the investment bank. The company fought off Edward Bramson and Sherborne investors a few years ago when he wanted to get involved and spin that unit off. There may be a little bit more pressure. The investment bank is doing OK, but it's not involved in the best market in the world right now, and it's underperforming in some of its American rivals. That will be something that investors will be looking at, and it is a big capital hog overall.
It is. Shares trading at less than half book value.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, that tells you that either the market just doesn't think that it's going to get a genuine return from those assets, or their assets are the wrong price. All of the UK banks trade below 1x book. Most of the big Americans do, with the exception of our good friends at JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon. And again, I think that's the market saying either you can get your profits up by taking more risk, but we don't want that, thank you very much. And even if we don't, the regulator might not let you. So I think it's very much the market saying these are now utilities, quite tightly regulated. They're going to have to offer a decent, stodgy yield to make us interested in these things. And their growth prospects aren't that great. And last year, actually, record profits in aggregate, £50-odd billion for the big five. Yeah. But analysts are now forecasting declines in the next 2 years. So maybe 2023 was as good as it gets.
Not a great place to be. Ross, got to leave it there. Good to see you this morning. Thank you. Still to come here on Business Live. Warwick Castle splashes £16 million on a new medieval-themed hotel, hoping to pull in the visitors this summer. Stay with us.
Kingdom. These last few years have seen some huge stories. And these stories have been driven by politics, by politicians, the people in power.
You must stay at home.
And it's my job to figure out how these decisions made by politicians impact all of us in our everyday lives.
This is the worst thing I've ever been through in my life.
People turn up here with their child stuff in a black sack and just say, I don't want to.
And that is what it is. It's first-class poverty.
Is this an example of the welfare state failing?
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
These are stories that affect us all. Millions of children are now having to catch up. Some stories have changed all of our lives. Because like the residents, the staff are being infected. Politicians, they make decisions all of the time, and it's our job to hold them to account.
I wonder if you will take this opportunity to apologise to those families.
But in the end, the real power doesn't actually lie with the politicians. The real power lies with the people. I'm Nick Martin. I'm the People and Politics correspondent at Sky News.
Slide Emirates, slide better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back. Bit of breaking news to bring you concerning the London Stock Exchange Group. It comes from our city editor, Mark Lman, who joins me now. Mark, what have you got?
Yeah, Ian, a really interesting development in the intensifying debate about executive pay in British boardrooms. What I can reveal is that the London Stock Exchange Group, which of course owns the London Stock Exchange, is consulting with shareholders about proposals to increase its chief executive David Schwimmer's maximum pay package by a very significant sum. Now, at the moment, Mr. Schwimmer can earn a maximum of £6 million or thereabouts under his current pay arrangements. And as I understand it, the company is now consulting with leading institutional investors to increase that to around £11 million or even slightly more. And the argument, as I understand it, that's been put to LSEG shareholders is that the company now competes with big American technology companies rather than its peer group in the FTSE 100. Now, I also understand that the response to these proposals from LSEG has been overwhelmingly positive, and if that is in fact the case, these will be outlined formally in the company's annual report in a few weeks' time and then put to a vote of shareholders at the LSEG annual meeting in the spring. And of course, this is significant because of the nature of LSEG's business, but also because Julia Hoggett, the executive who runs the London Stock Exchange herself, said last year that it was important that British boards were able to pay more competitive packages to their top executives amid signs that London is losing ground as a financial centre to New York.
Yeah, very interesting development indeed. Mark, thanks for that. Now, life in medieval times was, according to historians, pretty harsh. Back-breaking work by day, cold and uncomfortable at night, and not much food. But that is not what Warwick Castle will be offering visitors this summer, as it seeks to transport them back to those times with a medieval-themed hotel. The £16.4 million development is promising to deliver modern luxury in a medieval setting that will aim to bring history to life. Well, joining me now is Liam Bartlett. He's General Manager at Warwick Castle. Liam, welcome to you. What was the impetus for this project?
Good morning, and thanks for having me on. Look, we've had accommodation here at the castle for over 5 years now in the form of outdoor lodges, glamping, an amazing sort of historic setting down in the woodland here on the River Avon. And to be frank, to make sure that we are keeping up with the demand for accommodation and overnight stays, we are investing over £16 million in a brand new medieval-themed hotel, which will sit alongside the existing Knights Village accommodation. And really, there's more than a day's worth of stuff to do here at the castle. We have to make sure, as a visitor attraction in modern day, that we're kind of keeping up with expectations of guests. And for that reason, we put on a huge amount of shows, a huge amount of entertainment. And that means there's more reasons to come visit, stay overnight, and also visit the local town. Warwick is a fantastic market town, and it's got lots to offer. So here, between us at the castle and in the town, we really saw huge demand for overnight stays.
And when will this facility open, and how many jobs will be created?
So we've launched this morning on sale. It opens on July 22nd, so right in the heart of our busiest period in the summer. It's going to create, the building construction project alone has created over 70 jobs. As we go into the phase of opening, it'll add another 15 to 20 jobs in the local economy. But it also provides that really important bed stock for a town like Warwick, where people can come and visit and enjoy the local area.
What are the big challenges involved in bringing the past to life in this way?
And this is the thing. What we want is obviously modern luxuries. We want to make sure it's a comfortable night stay. It's a really high quality hotel experience. But at the same time, we want to immerse guests. All of our kind of objectives at the castle are to immerse guests in history. We want people to feel like they're really getting to experience not just medieval life, but Victorian, Tudor, etc. So there'll be a lot of historic features in the castle. As you enter the main reception space, it's a huge galloping medieval horse, knight on horseback. And then in the rooms, there's lots of touches to our amazing history and our amazing past, whilst making sure, obviously, it's warm and comfortable.
How does the visitor break down between domestic visitors and visitors from overseas?
Yeah, so obviously things have changed drastically since COVID, but we are seeing international visitors recover. We have around 20 to 25% of our visitation is international. So we've got a big demand there for people coming to visit the Warwickshire area. Stratford-upon-Avon's just down the road. And obviously we're an iconic historic attraction in this area. So we get a good amount of international visitation. But also, there are local families or families within a 2-3 hour drive time that are looking for a staycation. They want to stay in the UK. They want to stay somewhere unique. And we're hoping that this will really kind of tick that box for them to see some of the English history, but also immerse themselves in a really great family kind of destination.
OK, Liam, got to leave it there. Best of luck with the opening. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from me for the time being. I'll be back, of course, at 4:30 with our afternoon edition of Business Live. Hope very much to see you then. In the meantime, do stay tuned after this very short break. Wilfred Frost will be back with you. See you later. Cheerio.